In 1975, one of the most powerful men in the American labor movement vanished in broad daylight. Jimmy Hoffa, the legendary union boss who once held sway over millions of truck drivers and billions in pension funds, simply disappeared, never to be seen or heard from again. But what makes this story so haunting isn't just that Hoffa vanished, it's how, despite decades of investigations, no body has ever been found. No one has ever been officially charged. And no theory has ever been conclusively proven. This isn't just a cold case, it's a frozen one. Yet now, in 2024, new clues are surfacing. A bizarre message scribbled on a playing card. Ground-penetrating radar. An eyewitness stepping out of the shadows. Could we be standing on the brink of solving the Jimmy Hoffa mystery? Before he became a mystery, Hoffa was a movement. Born in 1913 to a poor family in Indiana, Hoffa entered the labor force as a teenager. By his early 20s, he was organizing workers with fearless tenacity. He understood the pain of the working class, and more importantly, he knew how to fight for them. His rise through the ranks of the Teamsters Union was meteoric. By 1957, he became president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, America's largest and most powerful union at the time. With a membership in the millions and a pension fund valued in the billions, Hoffa wasn't just a labor leader, he was a political force of nature. But power, as it often does, came at a cost. Jimmy Hoffa didn't just know the mob, he negotiated with them. He wasn't some pawn on the board. Hoffa was the guy who sat at the same table as mafia dons and union titans and somehow kept both sides playing nice for a while. In the world of organized labor, he was the glue between hard-hat America and the dark underbelly of influence and control. The Teamsters Pension Fund? That was the golden goose. Billions of dollars at Hoffa's fingertips, and much of it flowed quietly into casinos, construction projects, and loans to mob-affiliated businesses that couldn't get a dime from a bank. These weren't just business arrangements. These were power plays. Every loan was a favor. Every construction project built in Vegas or Miami was a handshake deal with consequences. Hoffa had built a network so complex, so entangled, that separating union money from mafia interests became nearly impossible. And that's exactly how both sides liked it. But the balance was fragile. When Hoffa went to prison in 1967, the mafia moved fast. They used the moment to tighten their grip on the union, installing leadership they could control, like Frank Fitzsimmons, a man widely seen as more agreeable, less confrontational. When Hoffa got out in 1971, with Nixon's pardon in hand and fire in his gut, he made it clear, he wanted back in. He was ready to reclaim the throne. That's when everything started to shift. The mob had adjusted to life without Hoffa. His return wasn't a reunion, it was a threat. And threats in that world? They don't get warnings. They get silenced. What Hoffa underestimated was how much had changed in his absence. The power structure, the loyalties, the deals that had been made in the shadows. He was no longer the indispensable middleman. He was a liability with a memory full of secrets and a voice loud enough to blow the whole thing open. And when a man knows too much in a world built on silence, there's only one way to keep things quiet. The sun rose on July 30th, 1975, like any other summer morning in suburban Detroit. But for Jimmy Hoffa, it would be the last day anyone saw him alive. At 62, Hoffa was no longer the president of the Teamsters, but he was far from retired. He was planning a comeback. Despite a federal restriction tied to his Nixon-issued pardon, prohibiting him from engaging in union affairs until 1980, Hoffa was openly strategizing to reclaim his throne. And that made people nervous. Very nervous. That afternoon, Hoffa told his wife he was going to meet two well-known figures from his past, Anthony Tony Pro Provenzano and Anthony Tony Jack Giacalone, at the Muchus Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township. It was a public place, near traffic, within walking distance of a shopping center. This wasn't some shadowy warehouse at the edge of town. Hoffa was confident, maybe too confident, that this was just business. He arrived around 2 p.m., reportedly early, and waited outside. Several witnesses, shoppers, passers-by, even nearby restaurant patrons, later said they saw him pacing in the parking lot, checking his watch, clearly agitated. Some described him as visibly angry, possibly muttering under his breath. By 2:45 p.m., Hoffa was gone, vanished. Without a word, without a struggle, without a witness to what actually happened next. His car, a green Pontiac Granville, was found unlocked in the restaurant parking lot. Nothing inside seemed suspicious. His wallet was untouched. His personal belongings remained. There was no sign of violence, no broken glass, no dropped items, just a still, silent vehicle and a vanished man. And that silence would soon erupt into one of the most expansive missing person investigations in American history. When his family hadn't heard from him by dinner, they knew something was wrong. Hoffa never missed a check-in. He was punctual, disciplined, old school. His wife, Josephine, called the police that evening. By the next morning, FBI agents were already on the case. Within 48 hours, it had become a national story, splashed across newspapers from coast to coast. The Teamsters were quiet, the mob, even quieter, and Hoffa, gone, like smoke. For nearly 5 decades, Jimmy Hoffa's name has been less associated with labor rights and more with the ultimate true crime riddle. Where is the body? Over the years, the disappearance transformed into a cultural obsession, spawning a maze of theories that range from disturbingly plausible to outright surreal. One of the earliest and most enduring theories claims Hoffa was buried beneath Giant Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The story goes that shortly after his death, Hoffa's remains were smuggled across state lines and entombed under the stadium's concrete, possibly as a favor to the mob figures who had strong influence in the construction contracts. The theory was so persistent that when the stadium was demolished in 2010, media outlets held their breath, waiting to see if bones would surface. None did. Another camp of investigators believes Hoffa never left Detroit. According to this theory, he was lured to a nearby house, killed in the garage, and cremated within hours at a mob-connected funeral home. This scenario hinges on the convenience of eliminating physical evidence quickly. No body, no crime scene, no forensics. Some FBI agents who worked the case later admitted that this burned body hypothesis was once considered the most likely. But like all the others, it lacked proof. Then there's the story involving a 55-gallon drum, this one backed by several mob informants. Hoffa was allegedly placed in the drum and loaded onto a truck headed to a toxic waste dump in New Jersey, or possibly even buried in a landfill somewhere in Michigan. Years later, a documentary team scoured a New Jersey landfill with radar and excavation tools. They found hundreds of drums, just not the right one. The most intriguing twist, however, is the theory that's gaining traction today, that Hoffa's remains were moved, possibly more than once. According to new witness claims and circumstantial evidence, he may have been buried in one location, perhaps a stadium site, perhaps a mob-controlled lot, and then exhumed when investigators got too close. If true, this would explain why every search has come up empty. They've always been one step behind a crime scene that's constantly shifting. What makes these theories so frustrating isn't just the lack of closure. They all feel plausible. And that's the terrifying brilliance of this mystery. Every theory has just enough truth to make you believe it, but not enough to solve anything. More leads are coming, but are they part of the truth, or just more expertly laid decoys? In 2024, an anonymous tipster sent authorities a playing card. On the card were cryptic notes, coordinates, initials, and the words "he's still here." It referenced the site of the old Milwaukee County Stadium, demolished in 2001 and paved over. Authorities deployed ground-penetrating radar on the site. What they found shocked them. There were signs of disrupted soil, subsurface anomalies consistent with human remains or previous digging. For the first time in years, the FBI had a location that wasn't just a guess, it was a lead. Then came something even more startling. Following the media buzz, a man came forward. He claimed that in the late 1970s he witnessed Hoffa's body being buried at the stadium site. According to him, the burial was done in the dead of night by men he described as connected, serious, and secretive. But that's not all. He added a chilling twist. He said the body didn't stay there. Within a year, it was moved again, possibly due to construction plans or increasing FBI heat. And now he says, it could be buried beneath what is now a public park or even a building's foundation. Suddenly, the mystery wasn't just alive, it was moving. This isn't just a story about a man who disappeared. It's about why so many people wanted him gone, and why to this day, they've worked so hard to keep his final fate buried. Some believe the true story involves a pact between union leaders, mob bosses, and even high-level politicians who couldn't afford Hoffa's return. Think about it. What secrets did Hoffa know? What would have happened if he got control of the Teamsters again? How far would people go to silence someone with that much knowledge? And now, with technology, new witnesses, and public pressure mounting, the truth may finally be catching up with those secrets. Investigators are currently evaluating excavation permits. Forensic teams are preparing for potential remains recovery. The playing card is now logged as an official piece of evidence. If remains are found, it could trigger a chain reaction. DNA testing, witness corroboration, and potentially a new round of prosecutions, or at least the long-awaited closure for Hoffa's family. But here's the real question. After all these years, does the system even want the truth to come out? Or are there still forces at play working to make sure Jimmy Hoffa never gets found? If you want more mysteries like this, like the video, smash that like button so we can keep bringing you deep dives into stories the world has forgotten but refuses to let go. Subscribe for more unsolved mysteries, hidden histories, and stories that deserve the spotlight. And don't forget to check out the description. We've got links to similar cases and more videos you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching, and keep questioning the untold.